Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Q&A. As you can see, I'm just leaving the back open. So many people commented both on this and the roundup that the open back looked better, so I'm just going to leave it like this and hopefully get some cool things behind me at some point. But still got a pile of stuff to unpack and all that crap. But anyway, we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today, and also we have the Patreon bonus giveaway. So that Circle of the Moon that was donated, I will be doing the drawing for that at the end of this Q&A, so stay tuned for that. First up, Elmer M asked if there's a better way to put Super Famicom cartridges in a Super Nintendo without cutting the plastic tabs in the back. So I'll see if I can get it at an angle where you can see it. Probably not. Yeah, there we go. You can see it right back there. So those tabs are connected to a second piece of plastic. So if you take this cover off, right underneath this will be a piece of plastic with 3 screws on it. So your choices are, you could just remove that and these flaps all together, and now you just have an open spot to put your games. As long as you make sure you hit it with compressed air every now and then to get the dust out, you should be fine. And that's a free solution. All you have to do is have the game bit tool to open it up and a Phillips head screwdriver. But if you would like a more robust solution, I believe I saw, I think on Assembler Games last year, somebody made a 3D printed piece for the inside. So you actually would unbolt that the second piece of plastic and replace it with the 3D print design so that you don't have to cut any of the original plastic. And obviously, I'm a huge supporter of any no-cut mods, even for silly things like tabs, because you just, no matter what, you can't put plastic back, or you can, but it's not the same. So I hope that one, I hope both of those are decent enough solutions to the problem. And your other question was, you got a FrameMeister last year and have been using the same power supply it came with. Is that safe? I believe, please double check me on this one because I don't want to give misinformation, but I believe that all of the power supplies they've shipped with in the past few years are universal. But I could be wrong about that, because I think the original ones would only run properly on Japanese voltage, and I think the ones that have been out for a while now are fine. I also think the Sony PSP adapters are compatible, so I would just do some quick Googling, or maybe even just email Solaris Japan with your order number and say, hey, I bought this one at this time, is this power supply safe in the US? But I think you're okay with it. You just might want to double check. Chris from Belgium did some testing on light guns with his CRT projector, and he posted a pretty detailed description of what he did, so if anybody's interested in the fine details, check out his post. But the short version is, first he tested everything on his arcade monitor to make sure all of his equipment was working, and then he tested a combination of NTSC and PAL and different consoles and different light guns to see what consistently worked, and he found that NES and PS1 GunCon games would consistently work with his CRT projector. So thank you for the update, and he posted videos down there below, I believe, for anybody that's interested. I actually just picked up a CRT projector myself. I also forgot that they weighed a ton, so I think I injured my back again lifting this freaking thing, but hopefully I'll have a place to set it up. It probably won't be for a month, but hopefully I'll have a place to set it up where I could do testing, and maybe I could even try to get it into a place like iFix Arcade, so if it is tested and working, you could have a light gun wall for people that want to come and blast away at light gun games. So thanks for reporting back, and I will also, at some point between now and never, have a page and a video up talking about all this stuff and see if I can test as many consoles as possible. Armed and Overclocked asked, what's the best video output option for GameCube? And at the moment, the only one commercially available to buy just off the shelf is the Eon adapter. And you could just get that from Amazon. It's in stock, and everybody that I've talked to that used one says it works fine. It doesn't add any enhancements over the do-it-yourself kits, but it also doesn't have any shortcomings either. So it's a pretty good solution that you could purchase right now. If you want to go to any of the farther options, like dual outputs or just analog, then you have to look into more of the do-it-yourself kits or hiring a modder to do it. And Dan, Citrus 3000 PSI, makes some pretty awesome kits, and Greg Collins makes some really great 3D print designs. So if you wanted an internal solution, you could technically do it without any cutting. You could sit it right where that digital port went. You could have the analog output that's normally just composite or S-video also be RGB. So that's a great internal solution. You would just really need to hire a modder to do that or do that yourself. If you wanted an external solution, you could, I think Dan put up the design for the GC plug dual. I can't quite remember, but that's the dual analog and digital do-it-yourself kit. That one's going to be more complicated to build than an internal mod, so unless you really enjoy tinkering with these things, which most of us, probably would, maybe I'd lean on the side of getting the internal mod or having it done for you. And of course, at some point between now and never, Badass Consoles Adapter is going to come out. I have nothing. I have no info. I have no real release dates. I got nothing other than a prototype that works perfect. This is just prototype plastic. This isn't what it's going to look like. But analog, this is the Wii output, so you could use RGB or component from that, and HDMI, and this does have some software enhancements. But unfortunately, there really is no clue when this thing's going to come out. And, I try to stay out of the drama, but it does suck that his communication has not been better, because a lot of people have paid and wondering if they just lost all their money. And I don't think they did. All signs that I've seen is that these will ship at some point, and they'll be as good, if not better, than what people originally asked for. I just wish he would communicate better. But if you want to wait, this one will at some point be released, and it's just a plug-and-play dual option that works pretty well. If you want dual right away, probably the internal solution that Dan and Greg came up with together is probably your best bet. So hopefully that was a good answer. Elmer M had another good question. He asked, can any CRT be RGB modded? And the short answer is no, you need ones with certain chips, but I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. So the way that most of these RGB mods work is that it taps into the on-screen display menu. So just when you hit volume and you see the volume appear with a little thing going across the screen, that is the on-screen display, and that uses standard RGBS. So if you find CRTs that have that chip and there's a pinout so that you could understand which pins do what, you could be able to tap directly into that and then use that on-screen display input as your RGB input. So that's how a lot of the people do them, and from that perspective, you really should stick with a TV that has that. The other options are some tubes are compatible with arcade monitors, so you could take a TV and then just take the tube out and then just do a direct replacement to an arcade. So while that's not technically an RGB mod, that is an option. And then of course you can go directly to the gun that fires the three colors, but much like an arcade monitor, that would have to be calibrated to each source. So that would only be realistic if you were going to, say, use it as an arcade monitor, or only use it with Super Nintendo, or only use it with PlayStation. So for the most part, I would just, if you plan on doing this yourself or hiring a modder to do it, I would just find models that people have done before, so that there's already information out there, unless there's some special thing for it. The only other thing to remember is that a lot of the newer CRTs, the 480p and others, don't use a regular analog on-screen display chip. They actually use what's essentially a video card to do all the processing. So not only does that actually add about a frame of lag, but I don't know anybody that's been able to tap into that. I think one person did it to a 1080i tube, but no matter what they fed it, it was coming out as 1080i. So that's kind of a longer explanation, but the short version is just get one that has an on-screen display chip that can be tapped into. Min Tong asked if there's a tutorial on how to use the Smoke Monster update scripts, and I don't believe there's anything at the moment, but I agree, if you're not used to Python coding, it could be a little weird. So it's something that I'm going to work on at some point, hopefully soon. I just got to get a few things out first. But yeah, I wish there was an easier way to do that, but nothing for now. Jonathan asked about RGB bypassing Neo Geo consoles. There is still the board available from Alex Arcade TV, which I haven't tried on a Neo Geo. I've only tried his design on my Genesis, and it was a great board. I have no complaints at all. But the problem with the AES isn't just in the video encoder. There's a lot of stuff going on with it, and if you really wanted a perfect signal out of it, it's going to be a ton of work. So there's a few things you could do. I think you could just replace a couple of resistors and capacitors. So it's a non-invasive mod because you're just replacing components, you're not cutting anything. And if you really wanted to be OCD, you could save the original components just to have. And I've had a few people do that. I believe Jose and Firebrand X did that to theirs. And they saw absolute, definite improvements in video quality. Not perfect, but definitely improved. So that's an easy one. You could do one of the bypasses like Alex said, but you do have to cut traces, and there's a bit of hacking up to the board, very minor. But I don't know if it would really be that worth it, because there is a new solution coming out that's going to be a little bit crazy, but will completely change the way video output is from a Neo Geo. So I'm going to have more info on all this soon, but I would look into just changing those components as a short-term solution, because it's pretty easy, and then see how much farther you want to go with it. See if maybe you want to do the crazy solution, see if just changing the components are good enough for you. But there's going to be a lot coming for Neo Geo in the next year, and I'm going to try to redo my webpage on it as soon as I can. There's so much backlog of stuff I got to do, but there's some good stuff coming out there. So if you can be patient, maybe wait for some of that. And if not, then I would try just, I forgot what forum it's on, but I think a quick Google search, you'll find there's just a few components you would have to swap out on the board, and you do get an improvement. Jordan Chaston asked about compatibility with the OSSC, and specifically if there's also compatibility issues on the input side. And I think there might be, but I'm pretty sure all could be solved just by tweaking some settings. The one that I remembered was I had issues with my AES plugged into it, but I just followed whatever settings were on the Video Game Perfection website, and then it started working. On the output side, though, it's always a roll of the dice unless you have something that other people have tested and confirmed. So I've had capture cards that worked with PlayStation and Genesis through the OSSC, but not Super Nintendo. I have TVs that work with everything, but won't work in 5X mode with certain consoles. So it's really just something that you'd have to buy just to see if it would work for you. To be honest, though, it's a really cool device. So if you want to start flat screen gaming for retro consoles or for streaming, I would even consider buying specific capture cards that you know are compatible with it, because it's such a great tool. I'd rather change the capture card than change the upscaler. There are a few other options, of course. The FrameMeister is compatible with everything. You can get the new RetroTink 2X, which is only composite, S-video, and component, and it only goes to 480p, but it's compatible with everything you throw at it, and it's only about $100, so that's a pretty good choice too. But I love the OSSC, and I strongly recommend that if you're into flat screen gaming or capturing, that you should probably pick one up. Adam Brady wanted to know if you can do no-cut HDMI mods to the NES, SNES, and N64. So the SNES does not have an HDMI mod and probably will not, but all of the RGB mods you could do for it are no-cut and fully reversible. So that's something that if you're into preservation, you could completely put that back the way it was, should you ever need to. As for the NES, the only one that I know of right now is Greg Collins for the top-loading NES is making that metal, or the middle piece, not metal, that you could slide in there that actually has the HDMI port in it, so you don't have to cut anything. And I don't believe there's anything for the N64 yet, but there's no reason why something like that couldn't be built. The only cool thing is it's a very, very small hole on the N64. It's still cutting, but out of all of the ones to do, it's probably the one that's the least invasive. But maybe someday we can get a 3D mod for that as well, so you don't have to worry about it. But good questions. Adam Brady had a few other questions. He asked that if I could put links to items I reference in the description, just like I do for the roundup. Yeah, I'll start getting on that right away. I know I so far had spoken of at least one thing that I should probably find a link to, but I don't know if I could really go in and do all the timestamp things, because sometimes some of the Q&A stuff leads off on other subjects, but at the very least I'll try from next week on to include links to any of the stuff that I reference. So I probably should have been doing that the whole time, sorry. And the other question Adam had, I don't have the answer to, so I was hoping maybe other people could chime in the chat down below. But he asked if I knew anything about N64 region modding, and specifically a mod that Otaku Store does. He wants to know what happens when you play a PAL game on an NTSC console. Does it speed it up? Does it slow the console down? And the truth is, I know nothing about that mod, and I've never messed with different region stuff on an N64 before. The only thing I did was play patched games on a ROM cart. So there were PAL games that were patched to run on NTSC, but that's as far as I've ever gone with it. So if anybody knows anything about N64 region modding, please post down below and maybe help Adam out. All right, now it's time for the mini giveaway. This is the Bloodstained Curse of the Moon Nintendo 3DS download code that was donated by the importer. So a gigantic and massive thank you to the importer. I have everything loaded up in Spinwheel, and thanks again to Dave for making me that very cool, easy to use name picker. But here you go. This is for the 3DS download code. Let's see who wins. Jordan Hall. All right, Jordan, congratulations. You got Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, and thank you once again so much to the importer for donating that. I think that was absolutely awesome, and I hope you, Jordan, can enjoy it. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much to everybody who participated, and as always, any questions you have for next week, post down below on the Patreon page of this video. Also, I really enjoyed doing the second giveaway, so I'm going to try to do that as much as I can. But nothing's going to change about the big monthly giveaways. I'm still going to try to get some really awesome stuff for the monthlies, and I have a very cool one coming next week that I'll announce on the main podcast. But as always, thank you guys so much for your support. I couldn't do this without you, and I really appreciate it, and hopefully there's a lot more cool stuff to come.